Pikmin 4 has tons of crazy creatures and enemies, but today we are going to look at all the bosses slash mini bosses in the entire game and rank them from the worst to the best. With a total of 23 different bosses that we put together on this list, some of these enemies are hard to place in a certain boss category. Some of these enemies have certain theme songs that play that make it seem like a boss battle, but after communicating with you guys and part of the community, this is what I've concluded. The enemies slash big enemies that I did not include as bosses are creeping chrysanthemums, startle spores, bog swallows, puffy blowhogs, and grub chuckers, as you guys stated that they are more like big enemies instead of boss battles. So every other big boss that I have on this list is obviously going to count, and I'm basically ranking these bosses on how fun they are, how unique they are, and even some difficulty aspect might increase their likeliness to be higher on the list. But thank you so much for tuning in. Stop what you're doing real quick. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Pikmin 4 and Pikmin in general, but thank you so much. But first I want to thank today's sponsor, Pocket Champs. Pocket Champs is a free to download game on the iOS and Android shops where you get to train and prepare your character for big time races. You'll be the coach for your champ to unlock its potential by selecting the right training for the upcoming races. You'll strategize to find the best race strategy through world analysis and gadget selection, and just like any great trainer, you must trust your champ. Lay back and watch them race. The thing that I like about Pocket Champs the most is it harkens back to one of my favorite things about the classic Sonic Adventure games back in the day, was the Chow races, where you got to feed and prepare your character for a big time race or fight. And this game focuses directly on that, where you feel like everything you do and every way you prepare your champion is going to help it either win or lose its upcoming race. So strategy is key when you're determining to level up your character's running speed or swimming speed or even climbing at that. So yeah, there's a lot of strategy put into this game. So download Pocket Champs from the link in my description down below. And I've also partnered with Pocket Champs to offer you guys my favorite skin, the White Wolf. Click the link in my description or scan the QR code to download Pocket Champs, and the skin will be automatically added to your account on August 15th. And this reward is alone worth $10 and is only available until August 14th, so hurry up. But once again, big thanks to Pocket Champs for sponsoring today's video. Coming in at number 23 and starting this list, we have Porcilion. Porcilion is really basic, and it's kind of getting you into the game and, teaching you how to rush with Ochi. All you have to do is wait until all the spikes are gone, or even just a segment of spikes are gone, and then rush it. The spikes come at you very slowly, so unless you're like slowly walking around with all your Pikmin unattached to Ochi, then there's really no way you're going to have any difficulty with this, or really anything unique, because you don't really have to do anything special in order to take this guy down. Once again, used to kind of get you started into this game. The Blizzarding and Titan Blowhogs are very basic enemies as well that are kind of just blimped up into bosses. They have a lot more health, but overall very simplistic, especially if you just have the color that matches what it is. For instance, if you have Ice Pikmin for the Blizzard and just regular Fire Pikmin for the Titan, you're not going to have an issue at all because it can't really hurt them at all, making this extremely easy and no real tactics involved. The Arctic Cannon Beetle compared to the Horn Cannon Beetle is very different, and for some reason this one's a lot easier. You don't actually have to clog a port in the front of its face. Instead, you just start wailing on its behind, and that's about it. It moves very slowly and slowly turns toward you, and by the time it shoots a giant snowball at you, you're well out of the way. Yeah, this one felt like an easier, lesser extreme version of its predecessor. I think the only thing that makes this boss battle interesting is how you go up to it, because he's shooting snowballs down a designated path in order to reach the actual boss itself, but the boss itself isn't that fun. Number 20, we have the Jumbo Ballborb, which is just a giant monstrous Ballborb who actually can attack your Pikmin a lot quicker than most of the other enemies in the game. Chances are you're gonna lose a couple of Pikmin against this guy because he just rushes at you and lunges in a weird new way that the past Ballborbs never really did. But overall, this boss doesn't have much of a strategy in order to take it down. Just get behind it and ram it or throw Pikmin towards its face and you'll take it down pretty quickly without much of a struggle. It just has more health than the regular Ballborb. Another jumbo enemy we had was Master Hop in the Serene Shores. This giant Wollywog was Just that, a giant Wollywog. So all you had to do was chuck some enemies on it or stun it with Ochi, and while the Pikmin slammed on them, call them back real quick before it hops, and it's in the air for a very long time, so it's not that difficult, and there's not much of a strategy to it. Especially if you have Ice Pikmin, you can take this down extremely fast. I actually had to prolong this in order to get the gameplay because of how fast you can actually take down the Wollywog. Once again, that might just be due to the Ice Pikmin, but yeah, it only has a giant hop. I guess that's why it's called Master Hop, but that's really its only attack. It's something that I just ultimately enjoy about giant bread bugs. Something about dragging them back to your base and slamming their head on your rocket is just awesome to me. I don't know, it's not a difficult boss whatsoever. All you need is enough Pikmin in order to drag it away, and just watching him slam his head is always just interesting. It was a unique way to take out a big enemy that otherwise you can't take out any other way. So yeah, it actually has an original factor to it and something interesting, and just watching them drag things around the map is also kind of funny. You have to come up with a strategic way in order to drag them back to your ship, which I love. The Puff Stool and the Toxstool are both very simplistic enemies overall because they don't take a lot to knock them down. All you have to do is knock them over and then just let the Pikmin go crazy. But the interesting part is, at least with the Toxstool, is it will shoot out poison, which means you might want to attack this boss with more white Pikmin than anything else. But normally it would just shoot out a gas that would confuse your Pikmin, and all you have to do is call them back over at the right time. The only thing that makes this really difficult is the fact that it tries to run away every now and then. But yeah, it's like a big old mushroom creature, and it is still interesting to fight. There's lots of mushrooms all over the battlefield, and you have to ram him in order to knock him over is kind of fun. And then once he's flipped over, wailing on him from the underside is also pretty interesting as well. I think it just looks really cool. A lot cooler than it is, but yeah, it's not bad. The Smoky Prog can be detrimental to your run because it has extremely powerful attacks that could completely wipe out all your Pikmin, and also the trail that follows behind it can also wipe them out as well. So you have to be smart with calling them in and throwing them at this guy, which makes him an actual threat and makes you have to not just slam all the Pikmin into him, because I believe if you ram into him with Ochi, your Pikmin will scatter and probably take damage and die from its poisonous aura that surrounds it. It's no longer a secret boss for the Pikmin series, and also now has a cute little mouth that it uses to not only roar and cause your Pikmin to go crazy, which is annoying, but also spit this new toxic goo out, which is very, very bad for your Pikmin. Number 15, we have the Emperor and Sovereign Ballblaxes. I cannot stand these guys, and I kind of struggled to put them even higher because they really take no strategy to take them out. You just got to be smart with when you throw your Pikmin. There's no like special way to knock him over or anything like that, and I guess you can technically lure him into eating a bomb rock, but besides that, this guy is just trial and error, rinse and repeat, and it's very annoying because almost every single time you get your attack on him, he'll let out a giant roar, which causes your Pikmin to go crazy, which is miserable. It takes a long time, and it just slowly trots around the stage, and when it licks up your Pikmin, it can lick up multiple at once, which can be detrimental to your run. And not to mention that it can jump up in air and squash you. It is one of the hardest bosses in the entire game, and one of the most annoying, but it also takes some time to figure out how to attack this guy. You can't just rush with Ochi. He'll actually squash all your Pikmin if you try, so yeah, that makes this even harder. I somewhat enjoy the Horned Cannon Beetle because it adds a unique way to take it down. And if you're not familiar with this enemy from the past games, you might be a little confused for a while as to what to do in order to attack it. You have to throw a Pikmin when it starts to suck out of the nozzle in the front of its head, and then you can attack behind, and that's what makes this a lot better in my opinion than the Arctic Cannon Beetle. It still shoots out projectiles at you, and if I'm not mistaken, the boulders actually can kill Pikmin where the snowballs don't necessarily kill them. They pick them up in the snow and take them along the path, dropping them at the end, which makes this not only harder, but also a little bit more unique. Burrowing Snagret returns in Pikmin 4, and it's pretty unique in a way because it's a giant snake bird. I mean, come on, look at this thing. But in order to take it down, this time you really want to start throwing your Pikmin as it's coming out of the ground, as ramming it with Ochi is not going to give you anything, and this thing will peck your Pikmin. You have to be careful and call them back when it's time, but the best way to take these guys down is as soon as they come out of the ground, when their heads barely plucked out of the dirt, then you want to swarm them with your Pikmin. It's nothing super special, but I'm glad to see them return, and they still are a pretty interesting boss to look at and fight. Next, we have the return of the Bug-Eyed Crawmad at number 12. This one is very unique because you have to take out both of its eyeballs before before eventually taking out its underbelly, which is pretty cool. Now, it's not that difficult. It slowly moves, so if you just move to the left and to the right, even its charge up towards you is very slow. You probably will never take damage. However, if you're uncareful, it will drag back some of your Pikmin that's left behind after you're trying to take out its eyes, but this one's pretty unique just because it has different segments and different parts before you just start attacking its actual health bar, which I actually really enjoy. How does his eyes grow back? I'm not really sure. It's pretty disgusting, yet it's still a really fun boss battle. Baldy Longlegs makes a return in Pikmin 4, and as there's not a lot of whole strategy involved, just having your Pikmin climb its legs in order to reach its bulbous center, it still can be very difficult as it's always stomping around and can easily stomp on your Pikmin. It also is not going to let you attack it for long before shaking them all off, making this a very long process. And this is more about Pikmin management than anything. You have to make sure you keep calling your Pikmin and make sure they're not getting trampled on, and know how to send a group of Pikmin at a time, so that way they all attack him without separate ones attacking slowly, making them shake off before some of them even get to the top. So yeah, there is a little bit of strategy put into this one, and just seeing this giant monster walk around the battlefield was always very interesting to me. Man-at-Legs was one of the craziest, most unique, and difficult bosses from Pikmin 2, and they kind of simplified it, not because of the boss itself, but because of Ochi. The fact that now once you throw all your Pikmin and you want to gather them all up before it starts firing at you with its machine gun, you can just have them all jump on Ochi and move around, which is very hard for the gun to hit you. Now, what made it so difficult before is that all your Pikmin would have to follow you and run with you, which means you would have to also find spots for them to hide behind. But now, since they all can just jump on Ochi, it makes life a lot easier. But this still is a really cool boss. With a giant machine gun turret on its undercarriage, it's really unique. And you have to take this thing out as the machine gun gets put away and it recharges for a second. And the strategy to take it down may not be that unique besides just chucking Pikmin at its undercarriage. But overall, Man-at-Legs is a really weird, really creepy, really cool boss that I still really love. The Empress Ball Blacks could be pretty tough in Pikmin 2. I remember there were more boulders that fell from the sky and crushed your Pikmin, but in this game, it's not too bad until you get to the final one, in the final cavern, which really shows you how this arena and this boss can work together in the most gruesome way. This could be one of the most difficult boss arenas where you have this tiny arena and this thing is rolling back and forth, but we're not talking about difficulty today at least. This boss can be very interesting. It can squirt out babies to try to attack you, rocks falling from the sky to keep you busy, not to mention the fact that it's rolling back and forth. Now, for a while, you can be pretty good by just slamming into the front of its head, but it's not until some of the later versions where you'll realize it'll toss your Pikmin to the sides of it and immediately start to roll to squish them over. So you can't just chuck all your Pikmin at it or run into it with Ochi all the time. You have to be smart with how many Pikmin you toss and where you toss them. Depending on the stage in the arena and where the Empress Ball Blacks is at, this can range from a very simple boss battle to a extremely difficult, intense, engaging one. The Crusted Rum Pup is a brand new boss in Pikmin 4, and it's also pretty unique how you take it out. You have to get behind it and throw a max of 15 Pikmin at its tail in order to drag it down to the ground, where then you can wail on its tail, which is pretty cool. I really like this boss. Once again, it's not that difficult at all, but it's really unique. And I like the way he charges at you. He can eat your Pikmin very quick if you're not paying attention. And yeah, I just like its furry tail that you have to grab. Of course, the purple Pikmin make this a breeze, but when you don't have these earlier on in the game, you have to keep chasing its tail like it's some type of dog, which I actually found to be very entertaining. The Mammoth Snoot Whacker is actually a very interesting mini-boss, which is kind of like a regular Snoot Whacker, but jumbo-sized again, but this time it actually changes how it works. You have to ram it twice with Ochi in order to knock it over. It's one of the only few bosses that actually requires you to use Ochi, and I just like the process of having to hit it with a double ram before it gets up. It also has a huge sweeping attack, which you have to watch out for, which is pretty cool animated. I really like it as well. He also has different attacks with his trunk, like slamming it on the ground instead of just swiping it over, but knocking him over to his side always felt very satisfying when I did this, and I want to fight more of these guys. One of the creepiest and scariest enemies in the Pikmin series, from Pikmin 2 again, being the Water Wraith, returns in Pikmin 4, and it's still not that difficult, once again, mainly because of Ochi, because you can just take all your Pikmin and throw them on Ochi, so losing them to the Water Wraith that's chasing you isn't too bad. Now, How to take this guy down? Once again, using the purple Pikmin in order to kind of solidify it so that way you can break it from its 2 giant wheels. But then once you do that, he starts running away, which you have to chase him and continue to hit him with these purple Pikmin and the rest of your Pikmin once he solidifies. It's nowhere near as terrifying and as scary as it was in Pikmin 2 for some reason. Maybe it's because I've already dealt with it. Maybe once again it's because of Ochi. But it definitely is a unique and interesting boss with 2 different phases, which is very, very weird looking and ominous at the same time. I love the design of this boss, and it just always will be creepy. I can't wait to dive more into the lore of this thing because I have a lot to say about this guy. Another reason why I love him is because they tie him into the actual dungeon as well, meaning you have to go all the way throughout the cave looking for purple Pikmin in order to take it out because it's the only Pikmin that can do so, which is very interesting in and of itself. But yeah, it actually ties into the entire dungeon itself as it falls down after a certain amount of time chasing you before you can even fight it. Now into our final 5 with the Snowflake Fluttertail, which is interesting because it utilizes something other than the Pikmin and Ochi for like one of the only bosses ever in the game, which I love. So you have to use the red Pikmin in order to grab a fiery pine cone in order to light the torches on the side of the arena. You'll then want to grab one of these pine cones in order to toss it at the body of the moth in order to melt the snow off of its body so that way you can have the Pikmin grab onto its furry self, which is a really cool concept. And it even gets a little bit more difficult the more you play, where it'll actually cover itself in 2 layers of snow, where you have to have both of the torches lit because it will fly around the arena and extinguish these flames, which makes you have to plan accordingly. I really like it. It's very interesting. It causes you to actually have to do something before just chucking Pikmin onto its body, and I think that's a really cool boss battle idea. Number 4, we have Groovy Longlegs. I love the way he hangs from the ceiling before you start the battle, but once it initiates, he drops down and starts stomping on you and moving around based on the tempo and speed that he's playing at, which will go from blue, yellow to red, with red being the fastest towards the end of the boss battle, which is really cool as he moves around, stomps harder, but also has the ability to spray your Pikmin and confuse them and make them party and jump up and down and dance, which doesn't hurt them, but you'll have to wait for them to stop dancing before you can even call them back. And there's also unique ways to take this guy down. You can actually make him trip, which I don't quite understand how to do it because even slamming Ochi on his leg doesn't do it. I think Ochi just has to start chewing at one of his legs or a lot of Pikmin on one leg and eventually it'll knock over, but you can tip it over, which is really cool. I love the whole music aspect to it, and even when you kill it, it has an awesome dubstep like horn that plays like you're at a rave, which I just really love. This boss really just had a lot of love and care put into it, you can tell. Number 3, you have the Fulix. I like how the Fulix looks like sap at first and it just kind of sucks up Ochi. You have to call everybody back in, and if they get stuck inside of it, yeah, you have to hurry up and get them out because it's not just water, because the water Pikmin will even get stuck as well. But I like how there's different options that you can use to take this enemy out, which I love. You can either freeze the liquid in order to shatter it in order to take out the core, or you can grab its tail in order to rip it out of the core. Giving the player multiple options is something that I've always really loved with boss battles, and I really thought this was unique. Once again, it's not that hard at all, and odds are you won't lose a single Pikmin to this creature, but I just love the whole animations around this thing and everything. I like how it wiggles his little tail and calls back the sap, and the sap slowly tries to creep back into the center towards the end of the boss battle in order to pick it up. I really love. Once again, not really difficult at all, but a truly fun boss battle with many different options to take it out. Coming in at number 2, we have the Gildamander. I like this giant salamander slash anglerfish slash giant gold rock thing. It is just awesome because in order to take it down, you have to knock these gold rocks off of its back, which then you'll want to break individually because it'll go over and pick them back up to cover its weak spots. It really only has one attack where it can just simply try to lick up your Pikmin, and also its angler at the end of its head can make your radar go haywire, but besides that, that's really about it. So you'll have to keep rushing this thing in order to knock off the plates of gold and take out the pieces of gold before it comes over and licks them up, so that way you can continue to wail on the actual enemy, making this longer than a normal boss battle and pretty engaging. I really like this one, and it has to make you manage your Pikmin really well. This is a really good boss fight. And coming in at number 1, what did you expect? The Ancient Sirehound, which is the final boss of the game, is not only the best boss in this game, but I believe to be one of the best bosses, if not the best, in the entire Pikmin series. This boss has multiple different phases in order to take it out, and they're all very fun and unique to play against. The very first one is you have to have him slam into the rocks as he does a charge similar to Ochi and Moss, and you have to take Pikmin to its tail in order to pull it down and whack on its stomach, which will only allow you to do a certain amount of health before it gets back up, making you have to do this 3 times each phase, which makes this a very long boss battle. Phase 2, he activates his ice powers, which shoots like little fuzzy ice snowballs at you, which is pretty cool. Phase 3, he drops little fuzzy electric orbs, which are filling the stage, which means you have to dodge him, falling rocks, and the electrocution, which is very difficult, which makes you actually have to platform with Ochi. Phase 4, he actually shoots little fuzzy fireballs at you and creates fire shockwaves all over the arena. In Phase 5, he can actually fly around the arena and has some new type of toxic ability, which is really, really deadly to anything and every Pikmin in your inventory, even the glow Pikmin, which the only other creature in the game that uses something like this is the Smoky Prog, which makes me think, is it some type of nuclear attack that it's using or something like that? But this is really cool, and the fact that this boss can actually jump around the edges of the arena as well up onto the top portion just means it absolutely utilizes the whole battlefield, and with multiple different phases and ways to take it out, this is truly a way to end the game. That is all the bosses ranked from worst to best within Pikmin 4. Let me know what you guys would have changed about this list or what you would have added, and thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to see more videos like this, including a difficulty ranking, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to let me know how much you loved this video. It'll only take a couple of seconds, but thank you so much for those of you that's tuned in today to the very end. And another big thanks to Pocket Chance for sponsoring today's video. Remember to download the game in a link in the description down below. And like always, I'll see you all on the next one. See you guys.